Hey everyone, Warwick's here. Happy midnight. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the leveling experience so far, whether you played early access or waited until the full launch of Midnight. So today we're going to be doing our Havoc Demon Hunter level 90 guide. So much like the Devourer Demon Hunter guide, I want to make this out first. This is going to include everything you need to get started for raids and Mythic Plus at level 90. This is not intended to be a guide for advanced users. This is intended for a guide to be for beginners or even intermediate level players who are trying to figure out, okay, what does everything look like now that we've hit level 90 with everything going on from an enchants, consumables, gear, rotation, talent standpoint. We're going to cover that all in this video. So I've already done Devourer Demon Hunter guide. Go check that out. That'll be in that upper right hand corner of your screen right about now if Editor Me does a good job. But today we're going to talk about Havoc Demon Hunter. We're going to go over everything you need for it. Hey, it's post guide recording / editor works. I forgot to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Havoc. So before we get you into the more formal guide here, let me quickly talk about that. Havoc's strengths, I think, is that it is a pretty tanky spec with really strong leech passive healing. So it's very, very good for that. It has consistent damage in terms of its AoE damage, with especially if you play the no mover builds with Immo Aura. Chaos Brand obviously is really good, very highly mobile between Fell Rush, Vengeful Retreat, and Glide. And then it also has some decent like magic damage reduction. 2 charges of Blur make it, like I said, a very tanky spec. From a weakness standpoint, I think that obviously you do have the mover build that if you play it incorrectly, it does punish pretty harshly. So you can lose a significant amount of DPS just by playing the build incorrectly. You can yank threat pretty easily as a Havoc Demon Hunter, especially in AoE situations. Right now, the build does lose a lot of single target in order to pick up the really heavy AoE talents, so it doesn't really have like a jack of all trades style build, and that is a little bit of a, to me, a drawback. And then for me, it's not so much, but for some people it might be. It is a melee build. Some people really hate melee. So if you don't like melee, obviously you're probably not playing Havoc anyways, but if you're interested in trying it, just know you got to deal with melee shenanigans, and Blizzard does a lot with melee shenanigans in this build. So, strengths and weaknesses of Havoc. Apologies for missing it in the original recording. Let me get you back to that now, to actual recording words. So, as you can see, we're starting off with the talent build, as I generally do. Now, the question is always with Havoc is mover versus no mover builds. Now, I will say, based on the numbers that I've been testing, both on beta and a little bit here on Target Dummies on live, with my very much not completely lined up stats, there's not a big difference between the two. If you like the mover build playstyle and can maximize the windows that it brings out perfectly, it is technically slightly better from a DPS standpoint. But if you don't have the ability to be able to maximize the windows of the mover build, then you're just better off playing the no mover build, and you're not actually losing out on a ton of damage. So the great thing about Demon Hunter is that you're going to get to be able to play both. Now, I am going to do talent builds for both mover and no mover for raid and Mythic Plus, and I'll try to link export codes in the description below for you to use on your own. Now, let's start with the mover raid build. We're playing Felsguard exclusively. Aldrachi Reaver just is right now completely in the pits. We're not going to touch it at all. So the mover build obviously utilizes things like initiative, tactical retreat, and inertia. So basically what it does is it makes it so that you have a shorter cooldown on vengeful retreat, and then when inertia is ready to go, you're going to make it so that either your hunt or vengeful retreat causes your next Fell Rush or Fell Blade to empower your damage, giving you a big damage window for the next 5 seconds. A couple of ways that you can kind of work with that, like on an opener, you're going to maybe want to hunt in Fell Blade and then immediately I-beam to take advantage of your Apex talent and really gain a lot of damage out of that first initial I-beam. And you're going to want to try to always line it up with I-beam if you can, especially after the hunt. In a normal situation, you're just going to try to hit Blade Dance or Chaos Strike, obviously, as much as possible within that short time of window. But other than that, you really don't see a ton of changes from what we were kind of running towards the end of War Within. Now, certain talents obviously have moved around. Essence Break is back. Luckily, it is much more straightforward to use than what it was in the War Within. Basically, use this when you're in Metamorphosis, and that's about it. And then on cooldown after that, because it hits in a cone, so it has single target and AoE value. So whether there's a fight with ads or not, you don't really have to change your build all that much in order to have enough burst damage on your adds in order to burst them down quick enough for any sort of damage checks or anything like that that we're playing through. Over in the class tree, your build is not going to change a ton here from mover to no mover. The extra 4 points, you're going to grab things like darkness and your pitch black. We do grab erratic fell heart for the 1 second reduce on fell rush, which for the mover build makes it really good because now you have a 9-second time frame on your fell rush. And then you grab some passive movement speed stuff, so you gain Fellbound with passive movement speed, Fellfire Haste, which gives you movement speed after you Fell Rush, and then of course you always have Pursuit, so you already can move very quickly with this build. But you're basically going to be utilizing things like Vengeful Retreat and Fellblade mostly, with the Hunt mixed in. Now the Hunt with your Apex talent is going to be a 1 minute cooldown, which makes it very valuable. So let's talk about that. Eternal Hunt is your Apex talent, which basically makes it so that you're when you use the Hunt, your next I-beam will be in a wider radius, and it is represented visually what that radius is, and deals an increased damage. It also does make it so that it afflicts more enemies when you charge through like a bigger group of people, and has a 30-second reduced cooldown, which is what makes it a 1 minute cooldown, and then more damage on the own. And then rank 3 gives you more Blade Dance damage, and then when you fully channel I-beam, your Blade Dance will actually refresh its own cooldown. So what you'll likely do in that case is, because we have demonic, you'll hunt, Vengeful Retreat, or you'll hunt Fellblade to activate inertia, I-beam, Blade Dance, Chaos Strike once or twice, and then Blade Dance again immediately after that, because you should be in Death Sweep at that point. That's kind of like an opener that you would be looking into, and we'll kind of talk about that in just a minute. Now, if you're not a big fan of the mover playstyle because you're worried about vengeful retreating off the edge of platforms and stuff like that, there is a no mover build that trades all of these right side talents for these left side talents for these right side talents, where you grab Growing Inferno, Burning Wound, Rage Fire, which basically all lean into more Immolation Aura talents, and then you'll grab a Fire Inside as well. You drop Essence Break in this case, although you can take Isolated Prey and grab it. Isolated Prey is kind of like the best talent point that you have left over, just because there's not really anything else that you can use it on. So this forgoes Essence Break, so a lot of people I think like this build because this Essence Break has a lot of hate out there. And this plays very similarly to the way that you would in The War Within, where you would be making sure that you're always having an Immo Aura rolling, and that you are kind of utilizing heavy Demon Blades, Immo Aura type gameplay loop. It wouldn't change a lot from a mover to no mover playstyle. Alright, Mythic Plus. Let's look at the mover build in Mythic Plus. Now you'll notice it's pretty similar to the raid build. Talents that you would normally think that you would take in AoE aren't there. You do grab Screaming Brutality to give you that extra throw glaive, which gives you a little bit of extra damage. Now, Glaive Tempest is a talent that I think a lot of people were excited about, but the 3 target minimum that it requires does make it so that it can be a little bit tough to use towards the end of packs. And you're better off just getting more consistent damage out of your Essence Break window. So unfortunately, Essence Break, because again, it does cone damage, is going to be useful in this again, and you're always going to either combine it with an I-beam or with Blade Dance or Chaos Strike. Now, the mover build actually does sacrifice some talents in the middle, things like Furious Gaze to gain the additional haste, and you do grab Inertia, but then you also grab all your Immo Aura talents. Now here it's roughly the same playstyle. You're always going to try to Vengeful Retreat into a Fellblade or into a Fell Rush to make sure you're getting that gap closed so you can take advantage of that 18% extra damage for that 5-second window. So again, this build is technically the best, but if you're unfamiliar with dungeons, or you're unfamiliar with the positioning that's going to be going on, or your group doesn't have consistent positioning, then you may be better off just swapping over to the no mover build, which I have here, or I call the low movement build, which basically forsakes Inertia and the talent above it for Furious Gaze and Furious Throws, which even this talent you could potentially grab something like Dancing with Fate. You don't throw glaive a lot in this build. This is probably going to be a better use of the talent point here in order to grab that, or yeah, it's just going to be your best use of the talent point to get the extra Blade Dance damage. But then, like I said, everything else really doesn't change. You could grab Disrupting Fury to gain the additional Fury off of this. Now, at this point, you could technically move down into Erratic Fellheart if you wanted to. I just don't see a point into it because you don't need the extra Fell Rush cooldown because you're not playing that mover build. So it just kind of depends a little bit on preferred playstyle. Like I said, the two builds are pretty close. So let's talk about the rotation, and I'll start with the mover build. So on an opener type situation, what you're going to be looking at is you'll generally speaking want to lead with the Hunt, to a Fellblade, Immo Aura to get your Fury up, and then you're going to want I-Beam to take advantage of that, Blade Dance, Essence Break, come back in here, I-Beam again, Death Sweep, and then Death Sweep again. You can kind of see that like you're basically making sure that as you get things on cooldown, you are basically making sure that you always have this window open. And you can see here, you kind of go into town. Now you want to make sure that when you have Vengeful Retreat up all the time, you want to use that as much as humanly possible. So it's like it's up here, so we're going to go boop, and then boop, and then into a Death Sweep immediately to gain the extra damage on it. So that's kind of what the mover build does. Basically, when you use the Hunt, you're going to want to Fellblade immediately after, or when you Vengeful Retreat, you're going to want to Fellblade immediately after. It is much easier to play, like the ceiling on the movement abilities has been brought down, but again, some people don't necessarily enjoy that playstyle, so it is completely up to you. The no mover build, basically the only thing that you do is you cut out the Fellblade, Vengeful Retreat stuff, and you just focus more on keeping Immo Aura rolling, and then using Blade Dance and I-Beam on cooldown with Chaos Strike filling the gaps. For Mythic Plus, same thing, because the builds basically don't really change all that much. So once you know the mover build and the no mover build for Raid, you basically play the same style in Mythic Plus, and you're going to be okay. All right. So let's talk about the stat priority for Havoc Demon Hunter. So in the last expansion, we were a Crit Mastery spec, and guess what? That hasn't changed. For Fellscarred in particular, you're still going to be with Crit Mastery, although Haste still has a little bit of value because of things like Demon Blades. So again, Haste is not like the devil, but it is not necessarily something that you want to go out of your way for. So you can still be a heavy Crit Mastery setup, just like we were in the War Within. Now, there are a bunch more enchants that have come through this season. We now have not only weapon enchants and then the usual chest, legs, rings, and gems, but we also, in boots, we also now have a helm and shoulder enchant to go along with that. So let's talk about that. So for weapon, you're going to want to grab Janalize Precision, which basically gives you a crit proc on your weapons, and you're going to want that on both weapons if you can to maintain as high uptime as you can. So if you play Devourer Demon Hunter and you play Havoc Demon Hunter, you'll notice there's a big gap in terms of what they want stat priority wise. So you're going to have big sets of gear differences in order to maintain playing both specs if you'd like to do that. On the helm, you're going to want the Empowered Rune of Avoidance, which does give you 37 avoidance. You can also technically do a leech one as well to really lean heavily into a leech playstyle. I would avoid the speed though, because you have a ton of built-in movement. This movement speed doesn't really give you a ton of value. On your shoulders, it's the same tertiary stat choice. You want to do a Mirror Seal's Grace to get the avoidance enchant, but again, if you want to do the leech one, you will not hurt my feelings. On the chest, you want to do Mark of the World Soul, which gives you 50 primary stat. You want the Hunter's Armor Kit. That'll give you 41 agility and 115 stamina on your legs. So again, because you're an agility spec versus Devourer being an intellect spec, you're going to want to make sure you have two different sets of legs, which is, again, annoying. But I've played things like Druid in the past where I have to do that all the time anyway, so it's not the end of days to me. Lynx's Dexterity is going to be your best boot enchant that gives you avoidance and stamina. And then for your ring enchant, you're going to want to grab Nature's Fury to increase your crit chance. Crit is definitely by far your better stat here, but Mastery still has a lot of value because of the chaos damage that you gain and the additional movement speed that you gain baseline as well. But you really want to do crit because you get Chaos Strike. Refund is based off of crit. You get extra damage through your crit and things like that. So there's just a lot of value with crit for Havoc Demon Hunter at this point in time. For your diamond, your primary stat diamond, you're going to grab the Indecipherable Eversong Diamond, which gives you 32 primary stat. And for any other gem slots, you want to grab the Flawless Masterful Garnet, which gives you 12 crit and 5 mastery. Now for your cooking and alchemy consumables, you want the Flask of the Shattered Sun, which is your crit flask. Potion of Recklessness gives you a bunch of your highest secondary stat while removing your lowest secondary stat. That should ideally be versatility, which is not a big deal. Still want your Silver Moon health potions. Always have some extra health potions on hand. Don't rely solely on any health stones to go through. You want your Thalassian Phoenix Oil, which gives you crit and haste. So obviously, we love crit. So Phoenix Oil is going to be really, really nice for that. You want your Augment Rune if you can have them. And then for your food, you want to try to grab the Royal Roost, which gives you 50 primary stat. Whereas with Devourer, you wanted your best secondary stat. For Havoc, you want your best primary stat. Alright, so let's talk about your gear and your weapons and trinkets that you're going to want to target. Alright, so from a weapon standpoint, the number one weapon that you're going to want to go chase is going to come out of the March of Kel'Danis raid once it releases off of the last boss, and that is the Lightless Lament. Obviously crit strike when you equip it, so we love that, but it's the cantrip on it that gives that big cosmic damage. That is going to be a bunch of free damage that you can't really pass up. So you want to grab this on the highest possible track that you can get it on, whether that is heroic or mythic is completely up to you and where you're at level wise, but go chase this weapon. This is a weapon that you want to chase. As soon as this raid is out, you want to try to kill both of these bosses so that you can get this loot into your vault options every single week if possible. The other one that you would want to look into from a raid standpoint is going to be the Voidspire raid, and that's going to be off of Veilgore, and that is this Emblazoned Sunglaive. Crit Mastery, perfect stats for Havoc. So really strong offhand that you can grab. Now, for whatever reason, this weapon avoids you. You still can also craft a weapon at Crit Mastery, or if you have like really good like Devourer weapons, but you're looking for a quick run on a Havoc weapon with this stats, craft a weapon. Always an option in the back pocket, although there are 2 glaives out there this season that are really good that match what you want. So you just want to go chase them if you can get them, and if you can get them both at Myth Track, obviously you're living life. All right, let's talk about some trinkets. Now, from a trinket standpoint, I think there are 2 that are really good, and then there are 3 that I think fall just in a category slightly below. The best one is going to come from the Dream Rift, and that is Chimeras, the Undreamt God, and that's Gaze of the Almseer. Because we like mastery, because we like agility, this trinket, everyone that even has a hint of mastery desire is going to be chasing this, because this does give primary stat, whether it's strength, agility, or intellect, it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to be chasing this trinket. So again, this is another one where when that boss is free, try to kill it on the highest level that you can so that you can quickly get this loot into your vault options as well. That way, if you don't get it on a drop, you can potentially get it out of your vault. The other best trinket, and you could probably tie this into your macro it into your this button, Metamorphosis, because they share the same cooldown. Yep, you might have guessed it. We are going to Dragonflight, Algathar Academy, and the good old puzzle box. Big mastery buff on a 2-minute cooldown that you can, like I said, strap it into your macro it into your Metamorphosis, so that way every time you meta, you're getting this big surge of mastery to go along with it. It's just really, really good. It's just really good. You're gonna have to farm this dungeon for it. Now, there are a couple of other ones that you could look at. There is one that is coming out of WoD in Skyreach, and that is this Solar Flare Prism. Basically makes it so that you have a chance to gain crit, and then it gets increased by an additional 33 for the target's missing health. So it'd be pretty decent on boss fights, because you can kind of keep the uptime on this as much as humanly possible. And it gets better the longer the fight goes on. So pretty strong trinket. You can grab this. I think it's a step below Puzzle Box and Almseer, but still a really good trinket and farmable out of Skyreach if you need to. But that's the other one I would chase out of the dungeons that I think is really good. Other than that, we have 2 others here. We have Radiant Plume, which is... oh, excuse me. Which is off the Child of Bellerin, which is out of... let's do Midnight, which I believe is this one here. Yep, Radiant Plume out of the March of Kel'Danis raid, which basically gives you a mastery when you do it, and then it kind of ups and downs on that. And then it has an on-use out of combat that you can use that has a long 5-minute cooldown. I think it's more flavorful than anything, but this gives you like a consistent mastery up and down, up and down. Like I said, pretty good, but it can sometimes give you mastery when you don't need it, like while you're traveling, things like that. So I think it falls behind something like the puzzle box, which you can macro into your metamorphosis and guarantee your cooldown window is even more powerful. This one I think does fall behind a little bit, but it is one that if you happen to grab it, not that bad. The Umbral Plume is the other version of it, which basically makes it so that you gain crit. So you have this here. So which one you would use? You would, generally speaking, want to probably put it into the Umbral Plume area. So I said 5 trinkets. It's really 1 trinket that you can swap between the two. So if you have a bunch of critical strike and you need a little bit more mastery, you turn it into the Radiant Plume. If you need more critical strike, then you turn it into the Umbral Plume. And go from there. So it's, again, consistent secondary stat, but it does wane up and down every minute. And then the power regenerates while out of combat. So there is some potential for this trinket to be really good in something like Mythic Plus. But again, I think it's a little bit, it's good because the stat number on it is just a big number. Therefore, it is good. But I do think it's going to fall very far behind things like the Puzzle Box, Aln Seer. And I think it's probably slightly worse even than Solar Flare Prism. So those are kind of like the big trinkets that you want to go chasing. There are some other ones that I think would fall into like a middle tier. Things like the Undreamt Gods Oozing Vestige is not bad. Eye of the Drowning Void is one out of Magister's Terrace, which wouldn't be bad. It's just a passive shadow damage proc. There is one, the Ranger Captain's Iridescent Insignia. There's another one that's like, the more people that have it, the better off you are, but even that one's like not the greatest. There's the Emberwing Feather, which is really good for Devourer, that you could use as a substitute trinket while you're still trying to gather, the Prism or these top two ones. But the trinket selection for Havoc this patch, unfortunately, is pretty limited. That said, from a crafted standpoint, like as I mentioned earlier, you could always do a Warglaive if you need to. Now there is a embellishment that's called Dark Moon Sigil Void, which gives you a chance to gain some versatility. It's just solid enough. You can use that. And then you're going to want to look into things as your other crafts, either with Cloak, because there's a good crafted cloak that basically gives you primary stat and an ally primary stat. That's the Adherent Silken Shroud. That's going to be a really nice one. And then the Silver Moon Argent Deflectors also have an equip effect that will give you primary stat as well. Those are probably going to be better than what crafting a weapon would be, especially since there are such good weapons already in the pool for Havoc. And if you craft the bracers and the cloak, you want to do that with Arachno Weave lining, which basically gives you an additional primary stat with Arachno Weave Insight. So yeah, those are going to be your best items there in terms of from a crafting standpoint. So that's kind of the guide on Havoc. If you have any questions about anything, make sure to go ahead and put those in the comments below. I try to keep an eye on my YouTube comments and answer them as best as I can. If you have anything that you find interesting, or if you have a friend that's looking to play Havoc this tier, make sure you send them this video. Hopefully it helps them out. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to watch me play Havoc, I will be playing it. Maybe not on every raid fight, or I might have some nights where I'm playing it in Mythic Plus, because I do intend to play it, especially once I kind of get Devourer geared up to the point that I want it to be, because I do think Devourer is going to be better this tier, but I still think Havoc is a really solid DPS spec this round. You can follow me on this channel here on YouTube, or my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/warxttv, because I do multi-stream to both platforms. I generally stream 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, and then some Saturdays mixed in on the weekends that I don't have my child. And then so you can see me playing a lot of Demon Hunter early on with Evoker spread out there as well. So until the next video, hope you all stay safe, hope you enjoy yourself, you're having fun, you keep on gaming. We'll see you next time.